Have you ever met a really intelligent person who didn't really know how smart they were? What was your experience with them? We have a paid summer internship program for juniors and seniors pursuing construction management degrees. 5 years ago we had a young woman who came into the program in her junior year. She was very tiny in stature and very quiet, but we soon learned, giant in intellect and loud where it counted. The way we operate is each intern will spend 3 weeks on a different project, learning a different role within the organization. 3 weeks on site as a superintendent intern, 3 weeks on site with safety, 3 with project management, and 3 on site with quality control. After each period, I received a call praising her ingenuity and ability to adapt and improvise in any situation. At the end of the internship, we have a plus delta review of their performance, and based on that review, we make a determination on whether to offer them a place the following summer. In the case of a senior, we determine if we want to extend them a full-time employment offer. Every review she received from each department all said the same thing: hire her now. We extended an offer for a salaried position, part-time, from that point through her senior year, along with tuition reimbursement. This young lady still amazes everyone every single day. She's 25 years old, making an amazing salary and absolutely dominating any project she's given. If she doesn't know it today, she'll practically be an expert tomorrow. She's incredibly impressive. I can see her having my job one day, operations director. Hopefully, it's after I retire. Good on you guys for seeing her talent and reimbursing her for it. I've seen a lot of great candidates get away because the company isn't willing to treat an entry-level candidate to their qualities besides being a new grad. Criminal defense lawyer here. Had a client who was a low-level drug dealer and gun runner. Most street-level guys have a very different type of intelligence that doesn't translate well to the white-collar world. Many of my clients ask to read case law. I've only met one who could read it, digest it, and discuss it intelligently with me. This guy, he'd do his own research from the jail, which isn't uncommon. But this guy did it well and would actually send me relevant cases that were helpful to the issues in his case. And when I explained to him why some were not helpful, he got it, asked good questions, and used that discussion to inform future research. There are a lot of inmates who consider themselves jailhouse lawyers. This guy was smart enough to actually be one. I think about him a lot and wonder what his life would have been like if he was fortunate enough to be afforded with the same opportunities during childhood that I enjoyed. Is guy. He'd do his own research from the jail, which isn't uncommon. But this guy did it well. This story is quite sad to read. I hope he can meet his potential someday. People who are great teachers without actually being a teacher. I've always thought people who can teach others are incredibly smart because they're aware enough of what they know to present it to others in such a way they can understand it. The guy I used to work with was a phenomenal teacher of all things paints, powder coating and color matching blending. He had a real passion for it and it showed in the manner in which he taught and demonstrated what he was talking about. In saying that, he was also very highly strung and had some mental health issues that held him back from doing great things and so believed he was an idiot. He wasn't, but no amount of telling him would help. I was always taught that the best way to learn something is to try and teach it to someone else. If you can put the concept into new words to explain it to someone else, you will have understood it properly, and trying to do so is a great way to embed the knowledge in your mind. My dad grew up believing he was dumb and would never amount to anything. His teachers all hated him and the first time he went to university he was kicked out. Around the same time as I started university, my mum finally convinced him to try again to get a higher education himself. He's often said that he's too stupid to go back to school, but he speaks about 6 languages fluently, has so many new interesting history facts that whenever we watch any movie we always have to pause at least 4 times for a lengthy discussion about it, and he remembers more book quotes than anyone I've ever met. He grew up in communist Hungary and East Germany, and he has since then climbed mountains and been scuba diving in the Atlantic among a bunch of other adventures. Whatever the discussion, he's got a story to tell. He's the coolest dad ever, but for as long as I can remember my family has struggled financially since he couldn't get a job that paid enough. It makes me so happy that he's finally reaching his full potential now at 51 years old, and we're all super proud of him. He dreams of being a teacher one day. He will the best teacher his future students could ever wish for. This is so wholesome. Even as a stranger, I'm proud of your dad. I had a kid in my class that never took anything seriously, skipped class, brought alcohol to class and did numerous other things. You name it, he probably did it. But man, that MF knew his crap whenever he paid attention. He understood things when other people were struggling to learn whatever was being taught that day, math, science, English, reading etc. It makes me a little sad because he was always a troublemaker, but deep down I knew that he was very smart and was capable of doing good in school. He just never chose to do it, or generally just didn't care. IDK at this point. I think he got involved with the wrong crowd early on, unfortunately. Former co-worker of mine. He came to Germany as a refugee in his young teenage years, had trouble in school due to language barrier, poor support, tough family situation, typical refugee problems. Then he was unemployed and job center, part of German welfare dealing with unemployment, sent him to the security company I worked at that time because conditions of employment are almost non-existent in this field. When he was on my team for an event, I, as team leader, had to show him the ropes. The event lasted 10 consecutive nights and we faced several different challenges that were part of the job. Every now and then he had a genius idea how to solve a particular problem. The following year I got him on my team whenever I could, trained him, and when I left the company he inherited my position as team leader. I don't actually know whether he knew about how smart he is, but he was so insecure in the beginning I boldly assume he didn't. It's hard not to feel stupid when there is a language barrier, even if you're smart. When you struggle to communicate what should be simple or basic things, you just feel slow. My mother. She was raised in a poor abusive family and left school very early to escape. Even now she'll say how she is uneducated, which is true, but she ain't stupid. She raised a bunch of us without much money and was always resourceful and canny at making ends meet. She can do fairly complicated math in her head, does extensive research before making large purchases, forwards me screenshots of quite sophisticated scam emails and tells me why they're fake. She's 78 now and has always embraced new tech. Has no trouble using her smartphone or her PC. She even troubleshoots for her neighbors. She still lives in the same poverty-stricken area we grew up in and is often helping her neighbors advocate for themselves, writing letters, telling them who to contact and what to say. She's also a keen observer of humans. She sees them as they are and takes them as they are with no judgment. She was always progressive for her time and passed down zero racism or other prejudices to us kids. I wonder what she could have done if she had the opportunities she made dang sure we had. My dad. He's dyslexic and growing up in the education system in the 70s didn't provide any support, so he's all but illiterate. He left school at 15 with no qualifications. He always says he's stupid and it upsets me so much. He won't believe it when we tell him he's not. Me, my mum and my sister all have education beyond degree level and he's smarter than any of us. He's eloquent, but sometimes mispronounces new words that he's heard in a different accent. Our accent is heavy on the R sound, so I've noticed him adding it to words that don't have R's. But of course he's never seen it written down to know. He watches historical documentaries and tells us about how that links with the one he watched a couple of years prior. He once drove me to university 3 hours away using the route he'd driven in reverse once without checking a map. I wish he could see himself as intelligent. ETA, since it seems like a lot of people have a connection with this comment and will enjoy this story. He did actually do a speech for my wedding. I was worried about asking him because I wasn't sure how he'd manage and didn't want to put pressure on him. But he was keen to do it. My mum made cue cards with picture hints and they did not help him. He just had it written out and learnt it off by heart and used cue cards with the full speech to help him. He can read it when he knows what it says, and his speech was by far the most confident and well performed speech out of all of us. Give him a birthday card with more words than happy birthday and he's not happy, but he can smash out a full-on speech with no hesitation. When you're intelligent you can truly comprehend how stupid you are. Someone mentioned already, but people who can easily teach others complex systems or ideas. My husband is this person, microbiologist, workflow management, and plays D&D on his downtime. He can analyze a difficult concept, distill the relevant information, make it easily accessible to someone and teach it in a patient, unassuming manner quickly without making the other party feel stupid or uninformed. He's modest as heck. He has no idea how hard it is to educate people, never trying to one-up or show off his knowledge. He's charismatic and emotionally intelligent. Honestly has no idea how rare his level of kindness and intelligence are in others. He's the best person I've ever met. Sounds like you should be a happy bear, but seriously, you sound like a great spouse. Not everyone is appreciated so much. My spouse. Very intelligent. Can manage really complex spatial stuff and think through mechanical problems in ways I definitely can't. Great with computers and pattern recognition and thinking creatively about how to solve problems. High school dropout and probably a 5th grade reading level due to severe and inadequately treated dyslexia and dyscalculia. I'm a physician and work with many people with less natural processing ability than my spouse has. I'm volunteer staff at a math summer camp targeted at children who like doing math. Most of the kids that we get are the standard doing well in school with good grades to prove it type. But it frequently happens that some kid is signed up and the parents tell us that their child doesn't really do well in school in general, or math in particular, but they just like doing math related puzzles. That's cool, because that's all we ask for. And often enough these kids come with very interesting insights and solutions because they happen to approach the problems from a different angle than the majority. They may be quite intelligent, but not in a way that expresses itself well within the standard framework of education. The same thing happens on the EQ social level. A few years back we got a sign up where the parents warned us that their son had great difficulties making friends or socializing in general. On the first day of camp, the kid took a chessboard and went to sit down to play against himself. Perfectly fine. But not much later another boy walks up to him and asks if he can join the game. They start playing and talking and they end up being practically inseparable the rest of the week. The kid that had difficulties making friends just made a new best friend faster than anyone else there. Just need to give people the right environment. It's a lovely story and a nice ending, but I gotta admit, I thought you were gonna drop some Bobby Fischer type crap there near the end. My granddad left school at 12. He's dyslexic, but back in his day, that wasn't a recognized thing. He has a particular way with animals, like he always knows what's wrong, can't fix anything. He is a prolific reader and people just gravitate to him. He's the most helpful person you've ever met and will literally go out of his way to help anyone. Nice personality. I work in manufacturing, so we get a lot of uneducated people. There are a lot of people out there who are smart but for various reasons weren't properly served by the public schools. They might be barely literate, or can hardly string 2 words together coherently, but they solve problems beautifully, or always have workable ideas, or they talk about ideas rather than people or events. It's hard to quantify, but you know it when you see it. On the flip side, I work in a professional white-collar job making good money and I know way too many colleagues who are educated but dumb as frick. It's messed up. You know it when you see it. My mom's boyfriend. We have a variety of specialists in my family, from medicine to art to education to software. We go around the table at family gatherings and try to stump him with questions. He's never gotten one wrong to date. He just knows everything about everything. Obviously has a photographic memory, reads voraciously, and delivers car parts for a living. Sorry, I meant to say he did deliver car parts but is now unemployed due to COVID. I knew a guy who very smart with the ability to be extremely manipulative and had no idea. He always got good grades in school, often without studying much at all. What was more impressive was his ability to read people's body language, vocal tone fluctuation, and micro expressions. Often he would know what emotions someone was feeling and how best to proceed. The guy was a master at subtle communication, such as mirroring and framing conversations so he would be dominant. He was able to use this social intelligence to get with girls, but he would also use it to get people to do things he wanted. One of the clearest examples of manipulation that I know of is that he got his friend to break up with his longtime girlfriend. His friend's girlfriend was kinda a drag and would be a little annoying around the group. So, He subtly started to slip in emotional and logical suggestions whenever he saw his friend in a moment of emotional vulnerability. Within a week, his friend ended the relationship. I knew one of these people. Once you figure out what they're doing, it can be devastating and horrifying. I grew up with a kid who was one of the smartest people I ever met. He was in all the excelled classes, a straight A student. Academics came so easily to this guy. He could have went to any college he wanted. Well, he just couldn't stay out of trouble. Living the thug life. Selling drugs. Running with wannabe gangsters. Well, it's been 20 years or so since we have been out of high school and he has done a few stints in prison. Still lives with his parents. Make a bigger living selling pot. It's crazy seeing so much potential lost. The saddest thing in life is wasted talent, and the choices that you make will shape your life forever. But you can ask anybody from my neighborhood, and they'll just tell you this is just another Bronx tale. The people that strike me are the ones that eliminate the wrong conclusions. Somehow, before solving an answer, the wrong conclusions just do not dawn on them. Met a lady that went to an Ivy League school. She could talk to you and hold a nice conversation. She could then turn around and talk to someone else at a higher level. Then, when asked a technical question out of her field of expertise, she could give you a complex answer. She spoke to people on whatever level they were speaking on. I have a friend of the family that took every class at a community college before going on to get his degree. He retained all of that information. Interestingly, he liked to speak in basic terms and hold everyday conversations. If he got shunned at a party, he would initially ignore it and keep hanging out with you. Eventually, as the people who shunned him came to a point where they had to stop their conversation, he would butt in. They often could not figure out the answer to what they were talking about. He would just chime in with a smile and explain the rest of the concept to them. Then he would turn back to you and keep bullshitting. I've seen him do that multiple times. My friend in high school thinks he's dumb, but has an absolutely phenomenal knowledge of politics and the legal economic system. He has dyslexia, but you wouldn't be able to tell because he reads more seamlessly than most of the rest of us. I wish he would recognize how smart he was, because I think he doesn't aim as high as he could achieve because he doesn't think he's smart enough. Keep supporting him. It took me a long time to realize my limitations were a lot higher than I'd thought, and people like you helped me realize. Encourage him to be ambitious. My current girlfriend is actually extremely smart. Her intuition is very good with people. Her problem-solving skills are impressive in situations where she is comfortable, and she has a very deep understanding of the human psyche. But her mother has been gaslighting her since childhood, trying to keep her fully reliant on her. I have held my tongue at points just to try and not be that boyfriend that ruins a relationship, but instead just show her how smart she really is, and where she might have a weak point that I may be able to help. I walk her through my thought process, and she picks it up very quickly. I always wonder how far she could be at this point in her life had her mother just supported her instead of tear her down. But just in the short time I have been dating her, I have seen her grow a lot, and I'm very excited to see where she can soar off to. I just hope that she takes me with her. Wondering where you could have been if you had good help is the sad reality for most smart people. My brother. Everyone used to tell him that he was just average just because he got average grades. But this kid is so freaking smart. He's a huge history buff and one time spent about half an hour explaining to me the importance of some Civil War battle and how it was pivotal in helping the Union win the war. I don't remember the exact details because all I could think about was the level of depth he got into just explaining and analyzing, and also explaining in a way that helped me to understand. At the time, my brother's intelligence is the definition of quality, and I'd shout that from the rooftops because as his older sister, I'm so freaking proud of him. What I would say is everyone I know with a passion for anything is smart when they talk about it because they care. I think some people just choose a quieter and more simple life despite their intelligence. I worked as a hospital porter for a few years when I was a teen, and one of my fellow porters was this brilliant chap who would skim through the paper on his break, then go off on some glorious leftist rant like the leader of a union back in the 70s. His political knowledge was unbelievable. He could easily have been an MP but was happier as a porter. If only intelligence was required to be an MP. I have one. As a psychiatric doctor, one of my jobs is community management of patients right after they finish an inpatient admission, so they are only slightly better, not fully recovered. One guy came into clinic and my boss for some reason described him to me as a bit simple. I don't know if she was trolling me, or if she just completely misread him, because he remains one of the smartest patients I ever had. He rocks up in high-vis gear with concrete on his work boots, and speaks in a broad accent. He often says stuff like, "Oh, I don't know about any of that," or "Mate, I haven't got time for this." But this guy was sharp as a tack. Anytime I would bring up a point of psychoadduction to help him understand his bipolar disorder, he would grasp the concept before I had finished explaining it. I still use his words today with other patients about the similarities between anxiety and depression. "Doc, it's like anxiety and depression are brother and sister." Holds two fingers up and crosses them. They aren't the same, but they are clearly related. I was floored. It was way better than whatever garbage I was going to say. He got well really fast. He just understood things so quickly, and was so open to new information. He could apply anything new to his own experience instantly. Uncanny. He had no idea how smart he was, because he just assumed smartness was for people with a university degree. I had to tell my boss they were completely wrong about him, but I don't know she ever took the time to update her initial assessment. My partner is Polish. She lives and works using her second language. At school she was taught Russian and can get by in it. She is so smart, and people abuse her because she speaks English with an accent. Those people you see every day, especially older people, living their lives in a second language. Yep, they are smart. All these comments are perfect supporting evidence to the notion that there's no such thing as intelligence as one single quality, and I love it. I knew a shaved head Mexican gang member in high school who made it to calculus without doing any studying or homework outside of just the class time. Because of this, his grades were always at a B+ level, so he never really considered himself smart nor drew much attention from teachers. Our high school was sharply divided between rich and poor, and he was doing as well or better than people who came from privileged backgrounds and that I knew for a fact had hours of private tutoring daily, were part of study groups, math club, etc. To this day I can't fathom how he did it. He did pay careful attention in class, so he must have had a photographic memory and genius level mind. Half the time he never even brought the book to class, and had to borrow a TI calculator. I know he left his books in his locker before he went home because he didn't want to be caught holding a school book by his friends. I was friendly with him, and saddened to learn that he was killed a few years after high school. I know a guy who can't read, is in his 30s pursuing for the first time a job, kitchen help, after a life of incarceration. The kitchen is hectic, crowded, high stakes, and busy compared to other kitchens I'd worked in previous. Racing through the day by the seat of your pants, and when the shift is over you can hardly recollect where you've been or what you've been doing. In this fast, unforgiving environment, this man is learning how to read, in his 30s. When he makes a mistake, the more experienced staff who would typically razz any slip up take the time to encourage him and forgive his mistakes as the mistakes of someone who is still learning. He's now able to work from a recipe book, pick items out of storage or the walk-in that are boxed and labeled. Box of sugar that doesn't readily appear to be sugar, box of cheese that doesn't show itself as cheese, etc. If you saw him at checkout like he has a hard time doing math and making change or reading, you'd notice it right away that he's not on par. But within the kitchen the man's considered a prodigy. For being unable to read or do math, he can follow a recipe better than some credentialed chefs in the house. Even more beautiful is that he is highly emotionally intelligent and always tries to make the people around him feel at peace or happy, even when he can't find his way around letters, numbers, or the outside world. I've met highly intelligent people that were uneducated. Usually it manifests as frustration. They try to explain highly complex ideas in ill-informed ways and are misunderstood a lot. My brother is clever but struggles to get the words out. He gets frustrated and angry because he can't get the world to understand him. As a teen, I worked for a video rental place, like Blockbuster but not. My manager spoke in 5 languages and did all the accounts without the need of a calculator. I asked him what was he just a manager at a movie rental place. He could be making a lot of money doing anything else. He told me making less money is the price of my happiness. Always stuck with me. My husband. He was always told in school he could do better. His parents have said to him in front of me he's not very bright. They assume because he works with computers all day he just plays video games all the time. He got terrible grades in school and dropped out of university. He could always do better in school because he was bored. He got terrible grades because he was told he'd do badly by his parents, his teachers, basically everyone in his life. His parents don't understand what he does at all. He doesn't work with computers all day and he doesn't have time to be playing video games all day. When I met him we working in the same company. I witnessed that company hold him back for 5 years because he was useful where he was. It was just very good timing when he applied for a different job in the same company but a different department and location. He got the job and was allowed to transfer within a week because a higher up was on annual leave and couldn't object. The original department had to hire 8 people to replace him when he left. He's since been hired by a different company and is flourishing. He's had several promotions and pay rises, is on good terms with everyone in the company from the group CEO to the cleaners in his office, and is treated with respect by everyone he works with. While he can't do simpler maths without a calculator, he can do complex quantum equations in his head. His father had the audacity to say you've always been bad at maths, to which my husband, who has had enough of his parents' bulls, replied my maths might be bad but it's good enough to know I earn more than you combined, in reference to both of his parents. I'm a super proud wife. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.